into business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast, and I appreciate all of you coming here to listen. I've got to give a shout-out to all of my subscribers. I do appreciate it. The chat over on Rumble has gotten very, very active. So again, if you are on my other outlets, please head on over to rumble.com, sign up for an account, find the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel, jump right in, get involved, and definitely hit that follow button there. You know, Rumble has been making a lot of things happen. And you know what? I just noticed, excuse me, I got to get the, I signed in, but I didn't do the captioning part to get the captioning going. And there we go. And now I've got the captioning going. So that should make some people happy out there. Okay. So I got a big show for you tonight. Big show. There's a lot of stuff, that's out there, that's going on, you know, especially what just recently happened in Nashville. I've got a lot to talk about on that, in particular. And I think it's going to kind of, I don't know, you may or may not be surprised by the take that I do, with it. So, yeah. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff, happening, with what's going on. But first, before I get to that, I am back to drinking Jameson Black Barrel. My actual whiskey variety is getting a little low. I haven't had a chance to run off to the store to get updated or more bottles of stuff. So it's running a little bit. It's running a little bit low. I guess according to Jody, I'm supposed to over on Rumble, I'm supposed to remind everybody that it's No Pants Wednesday. I have no idea. I have no idea about the whole idea with the No Pants Wednesday. And yes, Bonnie, I know you really want me to do the Four Roses. I have no Four Roses left. I finished it on Booze and News. I told you that when I was over there on Booze and News. So anyway, all right, let me get into my tonight's sponsor, of course, is True Grit Roots Network. Oh, that really didn't come through very well. Well, I mean, it's the True Grit Roots Network in an American flag theme. The I thought it was going to come through a little bit better, but all right, let's just go ahead and talk about them. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN, champions independent artists while paying respect to the pioneers who shaped modern roots music, featuring outlaw country, blues, and rock, with a unique twist of urban that is carefully selected and purposely put together. We are the radio highway that connects the back roads, highways, and city streets to your favorite dance hall, roadhouse, and juke joint. TGRN provides original exclusive programming and interviews that are produced and hosted by our own team of DJs, hosts, and personalities. Find us on the web at tgrn.net to download our app in the App Store and from Google Play. Alternatively, you can find us in the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations and through the Live 365 app as well. You can also play our station on your Amazon Alexa by saying play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Be sure to use the word from in the command play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Live 365 is now on Roku as well, so you can play True Grit Roots Network through your television. Breaking boundaries for authentic roots radio, True Grit Roots Network, tgrn.net, Austin, Texas. And let me make sure. All right. And of course, today is Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. All right. So let me get into the program. So first, real quick, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some people in the chat that have these little tags that are behind their names. And of course, my tag shows the crown, the purple crown, which basically means that I am the one in charge. I am the person streaming. I am the individual assigned to the channel. I'm the person in charge. So there's that. Then we have a couple of other icons, like also on my list. I have a lightning bolt in green, or the lightning bolt is white, but the square that it's in is green. That one means that I am a paid premium account, meaning that I'm paying for it. Okay. Now, there are some other ones that are in the chat as well, and they just launched these today. So let me go ahead and explain here. So they launched supporter badges, which the supporter badges are the whales that you see in the chat. And so you have a gray whale, which basically means that you've been a supporter for $1 plus. Then you have a yellow whale, which is called the supporter plus version. And that's someone who has put in 100 plus above that. And then the other one, or the last one, is a blue square with a whale in it. And that's a supporter plus plus, which basically means that you've put in $1,000 for this particular channel. Okay, so every channel that you go to is supposed to be different. Now, there is a new option on the it's under the Rumble Rant. So if you're on desktop and you go to the Rumble Rant, the $sign, okay, and you click on that, it'll drop down the menu for the standard Rumble Rant, which allows you to donate, 5, 10, 15, whatever. Well, there's a new option now that you can slide down and check. And what that is that is a monthly subscription. So for an example, if you wanted to subscribe to this channel, you would go to the Rumble Rant button, the $sign, and click on that rant for that rant, and then slide down to the subscriber section. Now that subscriber gives you a new badge, which you can see here in the red castle. And what that subscriber button does is it basically sets you up on a monthly payment where you're doing, $5 a month to the channel to essentially to hear the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Now, the one advantage that I've heard about so far with this new launch is they will, you get an ads-free experience. You don't see the ads either before or after the videos, and that kind of stuff. But as far as I know, it doesn't really change anything other than that at this point. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am not going to encourage anyone to quote unquote subscribe to this channel unless you absolutely really want to support me on a monthly basis. I'm certainly not going to turn down the money. But I am not asking anyone to do so, because realistically, you're not really going to get anything special out of that from what I can tell. Unlike, for an example, over on Locals, if I were to be doing subscription stuff on Locals, where I was doing special videos and things like that, behind the scenes kind of thing, which I'm eventually going to do. I've been tied up with a lot of other things. So that's basically what's going on with this. And Rumble also launched that right now for this month, they will provide 100% creator revenue share for that badge. Okay. So, for that monthly subscription, by the way, and it's going to go till the end of 2023. So for those of you that don't know, if you send a Rumble Rant, okay, if you send a Rumble Rant, I don't get the full amount that you put in the box. Rumble does take their share, the small portion of that money. And the reason being, obviously, is for operating costs and those kinds of things. So let's say for an example, you put in a $5 rant, I get 4 they get one. That's just an example of what happens. Okay. So now if you were to go and subscribe to the channel, and you were to go to the Rumble rant and subscribe rather than just send me a one-time rant, then what it would do is all of that money, that 100% of the $5 per month that it would take, it would send it directly to me. Okay. But again, I just want to point out, you're not receiving anything special other than maybe an ad-free experience. So I'm a little hesitant to even talk about this, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understood sort of what was going on and that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's, so that's basically what's happening, with that. And so like I said, I just wanted everybody to be aware of what was happening with Rumble. Rumble is getting better and better and doing more and more things. They are really and truly pushing towards subscribers such as myself, content creators such as myself, to make sure that we are supported by our supporters as much as possible. And you know, I generally have tended to, I've generally tended to been more like, I'd like to see you guys get something, for any kind of money. I do appreciate anything that you guys do. I mean, absolutely. That is just absolutely awesome. But realistically, I would rather see you get something, which is why I have, you know, the affiliates, that I do, like the Institute on the Constitution, for that, and plus my store. There are pieces of both of those places that do come to the show. But they are not, you know, I feel better when you guys actually get something for your money. So I do appreciate anything that you do. I appreciate any Rumble rants. If you guys do a Rumble rant, I appreciate that. But at the same time, I also feel a little guilty too. So I'd much rather you get something, out of it. But anyway, all right. Enough about that. That is like the biggest news, as far as Rumble is concerned, which is also part of the reason why I advocate for Rumble, because Rumble, unlike YouTube has restrictions. Unlike Facebook has restrictions. You have to have like so many followers, so many hours, those kinds of things in order to monetize with them. Rumble doesn't do that. Rumble just goes straight right to it. And so that's part of the reason. Not saying that I'm necessarily in it for the money, but anyway. So, all right. I see a couple of the guys, or at least I've seen one. I don't know if I've seen both. I think I may have seen both guys from Booze and News in the chat. They are going live probably before I get off the air. But they go live Monday through Friday at right around 9 p.m. Eastern. So, you know, in probably roughly about 45 minutes, they'll probably step away and go do their thing, which is fine. I also have heard, not confirmed, but an unconfirmed rumor that I may be reprising my appearance on Friday, because of the fact that last Friday's appearance was plagued with some technical difficulties. So, yeah. We'll see what we can do. All right. So it's, the two guys are Based Interactive. Based Interactive is Tim, and 0% Liberal is Dut. So Tim and Dut are over there from Booze and News. They are in the chat right now, and they're interacting with people. I do appreciate you guys coming over, which obviously we need to support each other when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, all right. Everything that I am about to tell you, okay, and everything that I'm about to say does not diminish the tragic events that happened in Nashville, nor any other tragic situation like what they have going on elsewhere, like, Sandy Hook or any of those, okay, Columbine. I'm just trying to think of some of like the major ones, but none of those are, nothing of what I'm going to say is intended to diminish any of that. So if you get that from what I'm about to talk about, I'm sorry, that's not the intent. we need to understand that there is a precept in America's society today that is going to, where we tend to want to blame other influences. We tend to blame society. We're tending to blame inanimate objects for actions and things that are going on with when something like this, something horrific like this is perpetrated. The problem is that we're not focused in the right spot. We are not focused on, and by we, I mean the people who are pushing for all of these changes and, all of these things that are going on, for everything that's happening within the environment in terms of, blaming the objects, blaming the situation, blaming a race, blaming, an orientation. We don't seem to, as a generalist society, blame the one thing that needs to be blamed, and that is the perpetrator. We've gotten away from the idea of responsibility and accountability, which were foundational aspects about America. Responsibility and accountability has gone away from this. And I'm getting frustrated with it, to be honest with you. I got into a sort of a Twitter battle, and it's still going on with a bunch of leftists who are basically saying that the it's the assault weapon. And assault weapons, again, I've said it on this program, I'm going to say it again. Assault as a term is not a verb. Or sorry, it is a verb, not an adjective. It's a verb. Okay? You perform an action as a verb. That's what assault is. You are performing an action. It is not to describe something. Now, that being said, I've said on this program, the statistics are out there. If you want to go and take a look for them, they're not really all that hard to find. Other objects such as fists, feet, hammers, baseball bats, all these other things that are used as weapons in, violent encounters could all be considered assault weapons, because that's exactly what they are. What that person is doing to the victim is they are assaulting them. Okay. So to sit here and just try and blame a particular type of weapon versus understanding that you're classifying something that, one, doesn't exist, and two, that it is, it's utterly ludicrous. Do we go around and blame forks, spoons, and knives for making people overweight? Do we blame cars for running people over and getting into accidents? No, we don't. And those are inanimate objects. We blame where we should be blaming, which is the operator of those tools. And so sitting here and going after, a particular tool that's being used in a horrific way, one which realistically should not have been, should not have been even available to the individual, because, again, it goes back to this whole thing about what's the commonality. And unfortunately, the left, and I got into this on Twitter, the left is pointing to the commonality is the guns. It's not the guns. It's mental illness. It's issues with some kind of stressor in a person's life. It is, interactions with law enforcement and other authority figures. Okay. And then, of course, it also has drug and alcohol use are very common across all of these events. Mental illness being the top one. I mean, just to be the person to want to go out and kill another, that alone is that's the mental illness. You have a deranged, mentally ill individual who goes out and does these horrific things. And you sit here and you blame the gun that they carried. Or, you don't understand that there is a trigger, there is a mechanism, there is an action that must be performed in order to get that tool to do what it's supposed to do. And it's asinine, totally asinine to blame anyone other than the person who's pulling the damn trigger, who's performing the action. It is asinine to consider anything else. Yet that is immediately what anyone on the left jumps to right away, is that you got to blame the gun. And it's frustrating. It is incredibly, incredibly frustrating for me for that. Okay. Now, the other problem that we have here when it comes to doing things like trying to figure out how we can prevent these from happening is that you're sitting here and you're looking at, okay, fine. If you want to pass a law, go ahead and pass a law. But what law is going to prevent this? I mean, let's just take the Nashville incident, this most recent one. Okay. Let's just take that incident. First of all, the person was not known to be under a doctor's care for mental health issues outside of the family. Okay, that's number one. Number two, and this is basically the claim by the city or the chief of police, I guess, or the sheriff or whatever. But that person said that they were not, they didn't even know anything about this individual. They had no records on them whatsoever. That person was able to go and legally obtain their weapons. So far what we're being told is that they were able to legally obtain the weapons. Okay. Now, all of that would have been based off of some kind of a law. Okay. That's already in place. Because I can tell you, when you go down to a store and try to buy a weapon, you're asked to do a national crime. I think it's not NCIS, it's NICS, National Information Crime Database or something like that. And what they do is they run you for prior interactions with law enforcement and prior, issues that might be on the record. And none of them came back for this person that we know of at this time. Okay. So, I mean, realistically, and there's even reports that are coming out just as a side note that the mother in the situation actually found that this person had weapons and forced this person to sell one of them. And she thought that all the weapons were out of the house. She didn't bother looking for anything else. And so that's part of the problem. Okay. So let's go ahead and I mean, first of all, you can't pass a law that's not already even worse or not already even more effective than what's already on the books. Let's just put it that way. And yeah, Jay, I would imagine that Facebook is probably going to kick me, and I'm guessing that YouTube's probably going to kick me. So if you guys are over on Facebook and YouTube on this topic, you might want to head on over to Rumble, just as a warning. So now, if we were to go and pass a law, let's go ahead and make a definition. I mean, I'm okay with talking this out. So let's go ahead and take a moment and describe it. Well, guess what? Nobody to date that I can find has been able to effectively define what a assault weapon is. In fact, our DHS secretary, Secretary Mayorkas, the dumbest secretary or DHS secretary of all time, went ahead and was questioned by none other than Senator Kennedy to describe what is an assault weapon. What is the definition? And they gave an example, which was the AK-47. Okay, fine. That sort of works. But the problem is that AK-47 is essentially for the civilians, a semi-automatic weapon. Okay. And so what you end up with is, okay, if that's considered an assault weapon and it's considered, a semi-automatic weapon is how that's configured, then every single rifle would fall into that category, because that category is that it's a semi-automatic weapon. Okay. So sitting here and trying to define what's a semi-automatic weapon, what's an assault weapon, and trying to fit it into a category, please, I encourage anyone who can define for me what an assault weapon is, and we'll definitely talk about it. Okay. But I want to bring something up to you about laws. We have a law already on the books that says murder is illegal. So if murder's already illegal and people are committing murder with guns, and those guns are being called assault weapons, why would another law, because we already classify murder as being illegal, why would another law stop that? The answer is it won't. The laws are not going to do you any good because of the fact that criminals or anyone looking to do evil is going to abide by them. Because, hey, guess what? If you were going to abide by them, all right, then why didn't the gun-free zone work? I mean, criminals are supposed to abide by laws. Murder is already illegal. So then the gun-free zone would work, right? Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. And so this is why I get so frustrated and so upset every single time one of these things comes around, because as outside of the horrific fact that it is an absolute, just horrific and horrible thing, okay, you can't tell me that another law is going to stop this from happening. It's just not going to happen, okay? It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. Your laws, your idea of laws and understanding of criminals is ludicrous at best. And at worst, completely delusional. Anyway. Okay, so let me move on just a little bit. We're going to stay on this topic, but let me move on just a little bit. The response by the Nashville Police Department was exemplary. Within 14 minutes, they had taken down the perpetrator, rather than the issue that happened in Uvalde, which was sit around and do nothing and allow that person free reign in the space. I'm going to tell you, there is only one way to get rid of these people. Okay. There's only one way to finish when these people start. And it's very simple. Can't avoid it. It's called eliminate the threat. There is no other way to finish it. You're not going to talk these people out. And this was the lesson that was found at Columbine. Columbine, they tried to sit and talk and negotiate and everything else, and that just allowed the perpetrators to go around and kill more people. Once a person has made this kind of choice, they are going to continue down that path. And so I have to applaud these guys. And here in the Federalist, this article, Nashville heroes exposed the lies of the Uvalde cowards. So one of the things that came out of Uvalde was the reason why the police didn't go in is because they were a little scared about the AR-15 that the perpetrator in Uvalde was carrying. Okay. And honestly, you know, okay, sure, fear does happen. And as I pointed out at once on Twitter, you know, these police officers, they've been shown in court all the way up to the Supreme Court that they have no legal obligation to put themselves in harm's way for you. They literally have no legal obligation to stop a crime happening. Okay. So, you know, to sit here and say that these cops were heroes, absolutely, they were heroes. They ran into what it was a potentially dangerous situation, put their life on the line for the lives that could have been taken beyond just the 6. And it's just, this is exactly why you're in that position. This is exactly your purpose as a police officer, is to not just write tickets and pull people over, but to save lives. And honestly, if you can't hack it, get out. Being a former service member myself, and not really, I mean, I'll admit, when I went in at the age that I went in at 19. And when I went in, I was not even like remotely understanding the magnitude of what was being asked of me. But the fact of the matter is that as a former service member, I took an oath to protect. I took an oath to defend. And as of right now, I have not been relieved of that oath. And so putting myself into a position like this again I wouldn't hesitate. Honestly. At least I would like to believe that I wouldn't hesitate to go and put myself into this kind of a situation. Because sooner or later you have to resolve yourself to understanding that you are going to do it. But the thing about it is that these officers acted appropriately. They immediately, like a firefighter who goes in to save lives and take down a fire, which they could get killed in the process also. Your training takes over. Your training becomes instinct, and that instinct takes over. And you go in and you do what you're supposed to do. That's what these guys did. And yes, they are straight up heroes. They are heroes. Okay. Now, I'm not going to show any of the body cam footage, realistically, just because of the fact it's out there. People want to watch, people who want to watch it can go and watch it. It's fine. But the thing about it is that there are some certain things that happen that cause me to pause and say, you know what? If this school had been hardened and had somebody on site who was trained and willing to do what they needed to do on that day, this could have ended a lot faster. And one of the things that caught my eye was when the shooter entered the school. Now, the original reports were that the shooter opened up the door and opened up a side door and just walked in. And in reality, what they did is they shot out the glass in the doors and then stepped through the broken glass hole, the hole in the metal frame, and like crouched down and stepped through that broken glass. Now, they had to do that not once, but twice. And it's the second, the thing that ran through my head was if there was an armed security person on staff, they had, depending upon their position, had the opportunity to get to that person quickly and eliminate the threat. And for those of you who would say, well, shooting out the glass doesn't count, sorry, that person fired into a school. And supposedly that person was firing at a person, their first target in the school through the glass. Okay. But they had to lean over to get inside. And that their position being out of position like that tactically would have been a perfect time to take a return fire shot. Okay. They crawled in through the hole. They stepped. It wasn't an easy task for this person to scrunch themselves into a ball and step in. And if there had been somebody with a weapon who was close enough and well-trained enough to go ahead and respond at that moment, that would have eliminated the threat right away. It would have stopped them immediately right away. And that would have been a perfect time, because if you watch the video, the rifle was sideways. The perpetrator was in a very, very uncomfortable position to be handling a weapon of that size, to be able to swing it around. There is no way for that to happen. If somebody was close enough, even with a sidearm, meaning a pistol, could have easily taken out the shooter right away. So this whole mess of conversation about not hardening our schools is ridiculous. I guarantee you could have 4 to 5, depending upon the size of the school. You could have 4 to 5 individuals who are concealed carry. The kids would never see the weapons. In fact, more often than not, they are probably not even going to even know that that person is carrying. Okay. And so you would have people available. You would have people available. There's a statement that I've said on multiple occasions, and people know this, and out where I live, it is a true adage. When seconds count, the police are minutes away. When seconds count, the police are minutes away. You as an individual are your first line of defense. You are your first responder in an emergency. Get yourself trained in first aid and in some type of weapon or something, whether it's hand-to-hand combat or some kind of weapons training, whether it's knives, whether it's a pistol or something like that. You are your first line of defense. And if you cannot figure out that you're in a dangerous situation, your situational awareness is ridiculous. Dan Bongino talked a little bit about this. The first thing that you should do when you walk into a facility is immediately run through your mind. It will take lightning speed in your mind. Take lightning speed to figure out what you're going to do in an emergency. And it doesn't even have to be like an active shooter situation. It could just basically be, hey, what happens if a bomb goes off and my primary exit, which is the door that I came in, is blocked? Where do I go? Or better yet, even in this particular case, you have a active shooter scenario and that person is coming in through the front door. Where do you have to go? Where can you exit the building quickly? And run that scenario through your mind. Whether it's a side door, and I guarantee you most people, and this, Dan mentioned this too, and I guarantee you most people don't understand this. Every restaurant has a front and a back exit. Every single restaurant. You hardly ever see the employees using the front door. They come in and out through a back exit. There is a back exit to just about every single building. They take deliveries there. They do, they have employees enter back there. So if you're in a restaurant, it's like you're getting on a plane. On a plane, they tell you, pick out the 2 closest exits near you, because in an emergency, you're going to freak. And you need to understand, even if the emergency exit is behind you, okay? So again, situational awareness. Get your nose out of the freaking phones. Start to understand. Look around. See what you're going to do. Where can you go? In the case of an active shooter situation, you may be able to find cover. Not concealment. That's a different factor. That means they can't see you. Cover is to protect you from bullets. Okay. So again, you gotta stop with this nose in the phone and stuff like that. You gotta pay attention to what's going on. All right. Hopefully, God willing, you won't end up being in a situation where you'll have to do something about it. Now, here's another one. One of the things that always really, really turns me off and totally disgusts me is the minute that something comes out like this, the first thing that the left does is they immediately go after the right, and they say it's the right that did it. And then they start talking about the guns. It's the gun that did it. And the reason why that change actually happens is because of the fact when the perpetrator gets an inconvenient truth that pops up in the details. And one of them happens to be in this particular case. I mean, the leftists had just some disgusting reactions to the position or to the place. It was a Christian school, and they rushed to politicize the fact that it was a Christian school. Now, further details have come out about this, and the fact of the matter at this point, as we know the details, is the fact that the choice in location was actually potentially up to 3 separate spaces. This school, a mall, and another school. And so this person, according to initial reports of the manifesto, had maps and all kinds of things in terms of the planning of the event of this thing. And they actually reportedly, and I don't know how true this report is, but they reportedly went to a different site first, and they found that site was too difficult to get into. That was more secure than the Christian school was. So don't sit here and tell me that hardening schools is not going to do anything. You put an alarm on your house. You put alarms on your car. You lock doors in your house. You lock the doors in your car. You hide valuables in your car when in a strange parking lot. You might park underneath a street lamp if you know that you're going to come out and it's going to be dark. All of these things you are doing deter a potential attack from a criminal because you are making yourself a less conspicuous target. You know, ADT has you put signs out on the front lawn. And the reason being is because you are basically telling the criminal that, hey, chances are you are going to be caught for this because the alarm will go off. You will have, some type of notification. You put lights on the outside of your house, motion sensor lights, in order to, illuminate the yard. These are all things that you do with this entire situation to protect something that's inside. There's no reason why we can't do the same thing with schools. But the one thing that happens in schools is this. Schools are gun-free zones. Now, this is an article from crimesearch.org, and crimesearch.org did an analysis of mass public shootings from 1950 all the way through June of 2019. And you know what they found? They found that 94% of all of mass public shootings that happened from 1950 all the way up to June of 2019 happened in gun-free zones, meaning that there was a law that pretty much said that somebody, a law-abiding citizen, could not carry a weapon within that space. They are after, if a criminal wants to do something, they're going to be after a soft target, whether it's thievery, assault and battery, rape, any of these, anything. If they are going to do something, they are going to look for a easy target because they don't want to have trouble happen. They don't want to have, a hard time doing what it is that they're trying to do. And so they're going to find soft targets. They're going to find places where things can go quite reasonably well for them. That's all this is saying. Our schools right now as gun-free zones are soft targets. Some schools in some states are actually changing to where I don't know if you've ever seen these online, but there are some places where they actually have signs posted out front saying that there are trained personnel on site with weapons. You don't know who they are, but they're there. And just having that kind of a sign out would be enough to potentially deter a criminal. What would be the best thing, though, would be to actually have those people, not only the sign, but also have those people on staff. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on a rant, but this really pisses me off. It's like you insure and you protect your jewelry. You insure and protect your cash and money in banks. You insure and protect the president of the United States, and we cannot do the same thing to what I believe is our most precious commodity, our kids, just because of the fact that our kids are a little spooked when they see something. I guarantee you they're not. They're not. They know what they are. They play freaking all these video games about it. Don't sit here and tell me that they're worried about this stuff. This is just crazy, okay? Just crazy. All right, I got a little bit more on this, but I want to get, because of time, I'm probably about halfway through. And I want to get to our pet of the week this week. So let me go ahead and get that up. Let's find it here. Here we go.
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
All right. And tonight's pet of the week was actually submitted by Amy over on Rumble. Amy has submitted some interesting, you can't really call them pets, I guess. Okay, let me explain. Give me just a second here. Let me say, because I left that open. All right, so here's the deal. Amy, for those that don't know, maybe hasn't watched the show very much. Amy does these things with her dogs. She's got some absolutely fabulous looking animals. They are just amazing. Okay. But one of the things that she does do is called, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but it's something about hunting, hunt division or whatever. And it basically takes the it basically takes the dogs and it runs them through a trial where they are hunting a target. Now, the target, okay, don't shoot the messenger here, but the target happens to be rats, and these rats are in these little bottles protected so that the dog can't get to them. But the dog has to sniff around and find these. Oh, it's called a barn hunt. So yeah, so here it is. Amy put in, she says it's a barn hunt. Okay. So basically what they do is they take, hang on, I got to shut the door. Hold on. All right. So basically what they do is they take these rats, they put them in this bottle or this tube, and they hide them within stacks of hay or straw or whatever. And this happens to be a couple of those rats. One of them is hairless, which is right here in the front. And this is what Amy sent me. She goes, these are two of the rats I care for when I am doing barn hunt with my girlies, her girlies being her dogs. I mentioned a naked rat. They are pets as they cannot be used in barn hunts. So, okay, so the naked rat can't be used in the barn hunt. For the 3 days of the trials, those are the barn hunt trials, she, as the rat wrangler, she's the only person that deals with the rats. You place them in the tubes for the hunts. She keeps track of their health, make sure they are fed, they have fresh water, give them goodies for doing the work. And apparently they are unionized, and so they are treated like gold. Now, there's another photo here. Let me go ahead and bring it up. It's the one at the back in the back. So this is another rat, a little close up of the other rat that is actually used in the barn hunt, because the naked rat is obviously not used. So again, here's the naked rat right here. Let's see if I can get it a little bit bigger photo here. So there's the naked rat. And then here's the other rat that was in the back. And so basically she is the rat wrangler when she has them. So anyway, so there you go. Thank you for putting that in as tonight's pet of the week. I do appreciate it, along with the story. Do me a favor. If you would like to submit a pet of the week and get your pet on, send me an email at fans, that's FANS, spelled phonetically, Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra, at whiskeymusings.online. Fans at whiskeymusings.online. And you can submit your pet of the week. Give me a photo or photos. As you can see, I do multiples sometimes. Give me the photos, give me the name, give me breed, age, and any other kind of cute story that you might want to go along with it, for it. And yeah, we can, I'll get it on Wednesday nights. That's when the pet of the week happens. You can also send that, question, or send questions to Whiskey to the same email address, fans at whiskeymusings.online. That's for Saturday nights. And I believe I have one for this week, although I'm not 100% sure. So go ahead and send them in anyway. Send them in, because I love to answer questions. They can be anything. They don't necessarily have to be political topics, but they can be other things. If I don't know it, I'll go and research it, and give you what I find as the most sensible answer. So there you go. And that is tonight's pet of the week. Once again, thank you, Amy, over on Rumble, for submitting that to the show. I appreciate that. All right. So let's talk a little bit, and we kind of have to be honest with you, we kind of have to talk about this, but, the whole idea about the individual who did this, and you'll notice I'm not saying the name. I'm not going to say the person's name. I don't even want to really talk about him other than in a very generic way, because that would give credence to what they did. But what I am going to say is that we have to talk about this, because this particular scenario, because the last 4 incidences that we have had that have been mass shootings have been people who identify as some other gender other than male and female. Now, does this mean that everybody who identifies as other than a male or a female is going to go out and shoot people? No. Just like it's no different than somebody who carries around a gun every day is going to go out and shoot people. It's not going to happen. However, we do need to understand that there is a bit of a problem with trying to basically say that if you are born a boy and have boy parts, that you want to be a woman. Okay. We have to discuss that because, again, the last 4 have been gender confused. And that confusion honestly comes and stems from the idea that we have the top 4, one of the top 4 commonalities across all the massive or the mass shootings has been mental illness. Every single one that has been out there have been or had some sort of mental illness, have been treated for some sort of mental illness, have been known by law enforcement or known by the civilian population and some kind of doctor. And so we have to ask the question, is recognizing that these people are confused about what they are and who they are, is this a potential issue where it might be an indication that there might be further issues down the road? That an individual who may not be comfortable within themselves or their own bodies, that they need some mental help rather than affirmation, they actually need to communicate and talk and understand this? I mean, this is a question that we need to have. I mean, originally it was dealing with people who had, challenges and things like the Columbine shooters and those kinds of things. We started to dig into it. But as our world keeps changing and pushing and trying to rather than affirm that somebody is either the opposite gender or conforming to, quote, a non-binary scenario, or even worse, having somebody who's identifying as a hawk or a wolf or, some animal, a dog, a cat. These people we need to get them the help that they need mentally, because all of these things are going against evolutionary and standard biology. And recognize, I mean, you're saying that you're a cat, so you don't even recognize yourself as a human? I mean, back when I was growing up, that would have been cause for taking you to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Nowadays, it's just, we have to affirm it. We don't take them to any doctor. We just affirm it. And it's horrible. I feel for these people only because of the fact that I know that this is not something that's easy to deal with. However, it's something that has to be dealt with. And you can't sit there and tell me that somebody who identifies as something other than the gender and the species that they are right, are correct in the head. They need to be talked about. They need to have a complete understanding of what is going on with them. And the other thing that the left is doing, which is really kind of sad, is the fact that these people are being given essentially the right to bring others into their warped sense of reality. You're being told by the left that you are essentially something other than what you are, and that you have to force others into that reality. I mean, look, if you end up being, if you go through all of the medical checks, balances, etc., and you really and truly end up as an adult deciding that you are of the opposite gender, okay, and that's the only way that you're going to feel normal and whole and everything else, okay, you're an adult. But kids under the age of 18, they're actually under the age of 25, generally speaking, do not have their full frontal lobe developed yet. And for those of you that don't understand, the frontal lobe is the center of the brain where rationality and logic show up. Okay? So if, and this is part of the reason, actually, this is scientifically speaking, part of the reason why it's so difficult to identify serial killers and things like that, because many of the same characteristics that you would see in a serial killer actually manifest themselves in teenagers, because teenagers have not fully developed certain parts of the brain, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is part of the challenge with identifying somebody who's going to be able to do, who in terms of like a high school kid or whatever, who does this. That's part of the challenge. Now, in this particular case, we're talking about a 28-year-old woman, okay, who believed she was a man. And, so obviously there's some other challenges there that need to be looked at. I mean, once you're an adult and you decide that's what you want to do, be the opposite gender or whatever, that's fine. But also don't sit there and expect that everybody is going to fall within your conforming values. So it's a difficult thing. It's no different than realistically, it's no different than I believe that there is a singular God, that God is the one who controls the universe that we live in. Doesn't mean that everybody has to control it. Everybody has to believe that. There's, people, atheists and things like that who don't even believe in a God. That's fine. You're an adult. You can choose to believe in what you decide to. Okay. But the thing about it is that, forcing someone else to believe as you do is where we start getting into a problem with America today in terms of reality of today. I no more can go and try to force somebody to believe in whatever religion I'm dealing with, whether it's, Baptist, Protestant, whatever. I no more should be forcing somebody to believe as I believe, as somebody else should be forcing me to believe as they believe. And so again, it's difficult for me to sit here and say, that we should be looking at, for an example, there have been calls for banning transgenderism, period. And while I can certainly empathize somewhat with that, I also don't think that that's a possible solution, because you can't. That is not anyone's specific right. As long as, and again, I've said this before on this program, I'm going to say it again on this program. As long as you are not infringing upon my rights and I am not infringing upon yours, no mas. We're good. You and I may not hang out. That's fine. You might not want to listen to this show. That's fine too. It's not the taste for everybody. Okay. But the point is that I can't sit here and say to somebody else that you have to live the way I live, just as they can't look at me and say, you have to live as I live. That's not the way freedom works. That's not a way America works. Now, I have a bunch of articles in here, so I have a bunch of articles in here that you should probably take a look at and things like that, but I don't want to bore you. However, one thing did come out So this article here, and I'm a little upset sort of about this headline, but because it was applicable to the particular proceedings that happened in Nashville. There was a study that came out with regards to what's going on, and this is a Canadian study, by the way, and it apparently identified the fact that transgender youth are more likely to support violent radicalization. I've kind of skimmed the study, and the problem that I have is that they are fully targeting transgender youth. That's not really what the study says. What it does say, though, is that it does come to that realization, but that's not the only thing that it says. It also says that youth of today, not just transgender youth, but youth of today have a lack of ties to things that would normally ground you, okay? That would normally connect you to society. There are times where youth feel so distant, and I can tell you this, having a older child and a younger child, the idea of not having connection to community. I don't know if anybody has raised kids, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in the middle of raising young ones, there's going to come a time where they're going to hit their teen years. And that teen year, the teen years are going to be some of the toughest, because the teens' connection to parents starts to wane as they grow up, because they start feeling like they need more freedom, more capability to run their own lives, et cetera, et cetera. And yet at the same time, the connections from those teens to their friends become much stronger. And the influences that those friends have on any one individual teen can make or break a difference in a teen's life when they get to a certain level. Now, the challenge, of course, with all of this is to keep them grounded enough to allow them to spread their wings and learn, but also to provide them the foundational aspects of what would be considered, for at least your family anyway, what would be considered a normal and stable environment. That's where the challenge comes in. And the thing about it is that especially with teens, because again, keep in mind, their frontal lobe isn't developed. So things like reason and rationality don't necessarily fully exist until they're 25. And so this is where we have the challenge and the scenario when it deals with things like this with young kids. And I'm not talking about necessarily Nashville, because again, that person was 28, identified as 28. But the thing about it is that these issues are things that have to get worked through in the teen years. And then all of a sudden, when they start growing their frontal lobe, I can tell you mine didn't fully develop because I didn't gain a brain, quote unquote, until 27. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that we have challenging environments. And what are the differences in what's going on today versus what things like when I grew up? A big, huge difference is the internet. Another big, huge difference is the fact that parents more often have to both be working. And so these are challenges that have to get worked through. And the draw of certain items and things to try and fit in are even greater than what I had to deal with as a child and those kinds of things. So, studies like this, violent radicalization, there's a reason why kids are easy targets, because they lack the ability to fully grasp what they're doing, and they are acting purely on emotion until they grow that reason and that logic center of the brain, until that starts to fully develop. And so it's the teen years are tough, and they're hard enough without that kind of backstop. And so the best thing that we can do as parents is be supportive, try to work with the kids, try to, give them a grounded foundation that they can come back to. And in terms of the protection of our kids from influences and things like that. So I do have the link to the study. This is the actual study link right here that I'm giving you. You can go ahead and grab it. I guess there's a PDF format. I didn't try to download it, but you can take a look. And as you can see, it's meaning in life, future orientation, and support for violent radicalization among Canadian college students during the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, the article kind of does a misnomer when they talk about transgender youth being the issue, although there is a correlation there, but it's not like what you would think with that type of a connection. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, and this is true, and this very well could be a link to, what's going on. But if you look at our America's values, so this is an article in the New York Post, and let me, it was pulled from a Wall Street Journal article. The Wall Street Journal and NORC, N-O-R-C, did a survey. And what they did is they found things that most of us older folks say, are important to us are not present in some of the youth. And so it found just 38% of Americans today say patriotism is very important to them. And then that's down from 70% who said the same in 1998. They also have a category for religious, where 39% of Americans place the same importance on religion, which was down from 62% who said that faith was very important to them 25 years ago. And then we have a percentage of Americans who said raising children was very important, fell to 30%, down from 59% in 1998. Now, the funny thing is that all of those categories dropped. But and even the community dropped as well. So let me move on to that because I don't want to give away the ending here. But the share of Americans who valued involvement in their community as very important fell to 27%, down from a high of 62 in 2019 when the last time the question was polled. So let me show you this chart here. And you can see American values. So the black line is what was in 1998. The gray line is what was polled in 2019. And the red line is what was polled here in 2023. And as you can see, as we've gone through time, things like patriotism, religion, having children, community involvement have all changed over the course of time. But the one thing that seems to have gone actually up is money. So money back in 1998 was not as important as it was in 2019 or in 2023. And so this is an indication. I'm just going to tell you right now, this is an indication as to what we're dealing with in today's day and age. We have gone away from things that would normally ground the human spirit and the human psyche in positive community values and have focused and changed the focus to more of a money aspect, to more of a physical value rather than something that is metaphysical, let's say. So this is really sad. I mean, to be honest with you, it's really kind of scary. And they broke it down also by party, and this is no surprise. Okay. The blue line is Democrat, the gray line is independent, and the red line is Republican. And look at the difference in the idea of patriotism and religion and having children. Now, community involvement is an outlier for this because the Democrats believe in community involvement. But in order to have community involvement, you almost have to have patriotism. You have to have some connection in terms of religion. You even have to have some connection in terms of children, because what is the point of being a part of a community if you do not have the next generation to grow and bring it up? I mean, this is concerning. And this, honestly, in my opinion, is where our country is really going wrong, because we don't have patriotism. We don't have a sense of religion throughout our culture. We no longer, I mean, look at our culture. Our culture is focused on things like who's got the most likes on TikTok, who's got the best looks, who's, having sex more often than others. All of these what would be considered worldly values, rather than a more religious approach to the situation, because religion, believe it or not, enhances things like family values, makes you understand and believe in something bigger than yourself. It encourages community through communal worship in churches. It encourages bringing kids along as the next generation. It also encourages a love of country in certain cases as well. And so all of these things can be broken down and torn apart into something as in terms of an indication as to what we have going on right now. Everybody is so focused on the individual, how I feel, how, well, you're not considering how I feel. You're not considering my feelings and the desire to go into a safe space. Just even the idea of having to go to a safe space is, again, an individual idea. It's the individualism that is coming out more and more, rather than the community and being together and being part of something bigger than yourself. That is the challenge as to what's going on. And this, I think, this is a huge, huge indicator as to what's happening in today's day and age. We're seeing a lot more individualism, a lot more, no family values are no longer showing up, and everything else. And this is to me, probably one of the most significant polls that have been brought out that indicate exactly what is going on and why we're having so many issues with not only, shooters, but also even dealing with things like drug and alcohol use and things of that nature. Being a part of and being a member of something special can fight the addictions that are going on and everything else. Okay. And also, just so you know, there is a article in the show notes from it's in the Washington Examiner. I think it's the only one that's in there. It was an opinion article that kind of talks about why patriotism and hope in America are collapsing. And I would highly suggest it. It talks a little bit about the article that I just showed you, or the Wall Street Journal poll. It goes into a little bit more depth with it in terms of some of the issues. But, again, I think that part of what we're dealing with here is a massive loss in our culture as a whole, in our culture. Having a community, having a sense of being a part of something greater than what you are, whether that's a family, or being a part of a religious connection, or something like that, is essentially what we're missing here. We have so much of an emphasis on the individual self that we have forgotten the connection that we have to have with other people. This right here, you coming here, is a connection to a community. I mean, yes, it seems a little one-sided, But believe me, this is a connection to a community because you come in and you want to chat and you want to talk with people. You get into the electronic chats and you listen to what I have to say. And when I'm wrong, I get called out on it. And so this is a connection to something bigger than oneself. This channel and what I do with this show is bigger than what I am. This is much bigger than just me. And that's why I'm, this is part of a connection to a like-minded group of individuals, which is essentially what a community would be. All right. Let me see. Okay. Let me just take a quick skim. There were a couple other things. Oh, okay. This is really important. I do have to pull in. This is probably what's going to get me kicked off. Anyway, so I want to tell you guys, I want to send you guys a warning. And this warning is really very serious. So I don't know if anybody really saw this or not, but there, right after this happened, or right before this happened, there was a trans day of vengeance that was announced. And as you can see here, the Daily Wire, this is in the Daily Wire. I do have another one. The Gateway Pundit also picked up on it. And in fact, Michael Knowles from the Daily Wire got booted from Twitter because of him bringing this up. So here's the thing is that there is a plan. Now, whether or not it actually happens, but there is a plan in DC, a day of vengeance. And these people are going to be walking around. Apparently they're supposed to be walking around with guns too, because there was a big push. There was a big push to drop, to take training and get guns and so on and so forth. And so, this is really a scary kind of scenario, but, keep your heads on a swivel, folks. I mean, seriously, if you are in a Christian organization, if you're in any kind of a capacity where you step out against some of the things that are going on in this world, where you stand against some of these things, be careful, because there is a group of individuals apparently within that kind of community that is looking to harm you, more so than just an individual basis. And they were originally, there were some reports that this was going to get canceled, but it's not. And Antifa actually is part of this, like Buddy said. Antifa created it. So just keep your heads on a swivel. Be careful, please, this weekend. It's supposed to be, anywhere from March 31st all the way to potentially the 3rd. But, keep in mind that they are going to move forward, according to this Gateway Pundit. The Trans Day of Vengeance rally will move forward and take place at the Supreme Court this weekend, despite the Christian school mass shooting. I would not be surprised if this kind of goes on, sort of like BLM and the rest, that it becomes a nationwide sort of thing. But just be careful. Be careful. That's all I'm going to put out there about this. I mean, nobody should have to be worrying about this. But I guess Marjorie Taylor Greene also was her congressional account was supposedly suspended for 7 days, exposing Antifa, who were organizing a call for violence on the Trans Day of Vengeance. So it's, just keep your head on a swivel, folks. That's all I got to say about that. And it's not just, there, but you also have to look at things like Katie Hobbs. Apparently, her spokesperson sent out a tweet. Let me show you. So this is the spokesperson right here. You can see, you can see this is the spokesperson right here. And she sent out a tweet that was basically this. And it said, the quote on it was, "Us when we see transphobes." And it's a picture of a movie, of an actress in a movie who's holding a couple of revolvers, basically ready to fire, fingers on the trigger, etc. And it's us when we see transphobes. again, this is getting bad. This is getting violent. And the press secretary, by the way, she resigned after suggesting that transphobes should be shot. She did get, she did actually do the right thing and resigned her position. But yeah, this is, things are getting worse, and I think they're going to get even worse over time. I don't think we're in the upswing just yet, for this, but watch yourselves, please. Head on a swivel. Keep yourselves safe. And that is going to be my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. I didn't even cover probably half of what I wanted to in terms of the article. So do me a favor, go into the description in the show notes and, grab the other articles, take a look. There's a lot of good information inside of there, inside all of those, because of course I try to bring you relevant content. Also do me a favor, if you are on my other platforms and, you would please head over to Rumble, sign up. It's free. And then, give a follow. That's free too. As I am trying to increase my base. If you want to stay where you are, that's fine. I'll keep transmitting as much as I can, on both of those. But, if you really want to make sure that I'm not censored or anything else, head on over to Rumble, sign up there, and do a follow. And we will see you next time, which will be Saturday night, on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Be safe, and good night, everybody.